What happens when one of the biggest global pop stars walks onto one of daytime television's most outspoken talk shows expecting a warm, easy conversation, but instead finds herself in a tense, unexpected clash that shifts the entire mood of the room in seconds? Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling as the audience claps enthusiastically, the familiar theme music fades, and the hosts settle into their seats around the table. The energy is upbeat, light, exactly what viewers expect at the start of the show. There's a brief exchange of smiles, small talk, and then one of the hosts leans forward slightly, cue cards in hand. "All right, everyone," she says with a smile, glancing toward the camera. "We have a very special guest joining us today, someone who has been in the spotlight for years, from acting to music to producing. Please welcome Selena Gomez." The audience erupts into louder applause as Selena walks out, smiling warmly, waving as she approaches the table. She greets each host one by one. Quick hugs, polite laughs, a quick comment about how good it is to be there. She takes her seat, adjusting slightly, clearly comfortable but still aware of the live setting. "Thank you for having me," she says, her tone relaxed. "It's so good to have you here," another host responds. "We've been looking forward to this." The conversation begins exactly how you'd expect. Light, friendly, safe. "So, you've been incredibly busy," one host says. "Music, your beauty brand, your show. How do you manage all of it without losing your mind?" Selena laughs softly. "I think I lose it a little sometimes," she jokes, and the audience chuckles. "But I've learned to take breaks, to prioritize what actually matters." There's nodding around the table. The tone is supportive. Another host jumps in. "And you've been very open about your mental health journey, which so many people admire. Do you feel like that openness has changed how people see you?" Selena pauses for a moment, thoughtful. "I think so. I hope it's helped people feel less alone. That's always been the goal." The audience applauds lightly. Everything is flowing smoothly. The hosts are smiling, Selena is composed, and the conversation feels natural. But then the shift begins, subtle at first. Alyssa leans forward slightly, her expression still polite, but more focused. "You've definitely used your platform in a big way," she says. "Not just for mental health, but also politically at times." Selena nods cautiously. "Yeah, when I feel it's important." "Right," Alyssa continues. "But some people feel like celebrities stepping into political conversations can be divisive. Do you ever worry that speaking out might alienate part of your audience?" There's a slight pause. Not long, but enough to be felt. Selena keeps her composure. "I think everyone has a voice. And if you have a platform, it's kind of a responsibility to use it." Alyssa nods but doesn't back off. "Sure, but there's also the argument that people follow you for entertainment, not necessarily for political guidance." A couple of audience members murmur quietly. One of the other hosts shifts in her seat, sensing the change in tone. Selena smiles, but it's tighter now. "I understand that. But I'm also a person before I'm anything else. I have opinions, experiences. I don't think those should be hidden just because of what I do." One host quickly jumps in, trying to keep things balanced. "And I think a lot of fans actually appreciate that honesty." "Of course," Alyssa says, nodding. "But there's a difference between honesty and influence. You have millions of followers, young followers. Do you think there's a responsibility to be careful about what you say?" Now the room feels different. The audience is quieter. The other hosts are watching closely. Selena tilts her head slightly. "I'm always careful," she replies. "But being careful doesn't mean being silent." There's a brief pause. Alyssa responds, still calm but firm. "No one's saying you should be silent. But when you speak on complex issues, do you think you're always fully informed on those topics?" A few audible reactions ripple through the audience, soft oohs, a couple of surprised murmurs. One of the co-hosts immediately interjects. "Okay, let's not." But Selena raises her hand slightly, stopping her. "No, it's okay," she says, turning back to Alyssa. Her voice is still controlled, but there's a noticeable edge now. "I don't claim to know everything. But I do my research, I listen, I learn. And I think it's okay to grow in public." Alyssa nods. "That's fair. But do you understand why some people might feel like celebrities speaking on serious issues can sometimes oversimplify them?" Selena leans back slightly, taking a breath. "I think what's more harmful is pretending those issues don't exist. Or staying quiet because you're afraid of criticism." The audience claps, some louder than others. Another host quickly adds, "And that's something we talk about here all the time. the balance between influence and responsibility. But Alyssa isn't done yet. I completely agree that silence isn't the answer, she says. But I also think there's a line between advocacy and messaging that might not fully reflect the complexity of a situation. Now the tension is unmistakable. Selena's expression shifts again, still calm but more direct. So what are you saying exactly? She asks. There's a brief silence at the table. Even the audience seems to lean in. I'm saying, Alyssa replies carefully, that when someone with your level of influence speaks, it carries weight. And sometimes that weight can shape opinions in ways that aren't always balanced. Selena nods slowly, absorbing it. Okay, she says. But who decides what's balanced? That question hangs in the air. One of the hosts exhales softly, glancing between them. All right, we're getting into it now, she says, trying to lighten the mood slightly, but the tension doesn't fully break. The audience lets out a mix of laughter and anticipation. Selena continues, her tone still measured but firmer now. Because from where I stand, using your voice to support what you believe in, that is balance. It's honesty. Alyssa responds quickly. But honesty isn't always objectivity. And just like that, the conversation crosses into something deeper, more personal, more intense. The smiles are fewer now. The pauses are longer. The air feels heavier. Selena looks directly at Alyssa. I'm not trying to be objective, she says. I'm trying to be real. There's a noticeable reaction from the audience, some applause, some silence. And at the table, the other hosts exchange quick glances, fully aware that what started as a routine interview is now something much more unpredictable. The segment is no longer just a conversation, it's a moment. And it's only just beginning. The tension doesn't break after that last exchange. It lingers, sitting right there at the table. You can feel it in the way the audience quiets down, in the way the hosts shift slightly in their chairs, trying to decide whether to step in or let it play out. One of the co-hosts clears her throat softly, attempting to ease things forward. I think what's interesting here, she says carefully, is that we're really talking about the role of public figures in general, not just you, Selena. Selena nods politely, but her focus doesn't leave Alyssa. Alyssa picks up almost immediately. Exactly. This isn't just about you. It's a broader conversation. But since you are here, she adds with a small, measured smile, it's worth asking directly. There's a faint reaction from the audience, some uneasy laughter. Selena exhales lightly, then leans forward just a bit. Okay, she says. Then ask me directly. That lands. The audience reacts with a soft, oh, sensing the shift again. Alyssa doesn't hesitate. Do you think celebrities sometimes speak too quickly on issues they don't fully understand? Just because there's pressure to say something? There's a brief pause. One of the hosts opens her mouth like she might jump in, but stops. Selena answers, calm but firm. Yes, that happens. Absolutely. The answer seems to surprise Alyssa slightly. But, Selena continues, that doesn't mean no one should speak at all. It means people should learn, listen, and do better. Including me. The audience applauds lightly, some appreciative, some still unsure. Alyssa nods. That's fair. But then where does accountability come in? Because when a public figure gets something wrong, the impact is much bigger. Selena tilts her head slightly. Accountability matters. I've taken accountability before. Alyssa leans in just a bit more. Can you give an example of when you felt like you got it wrong? Now the room really tightens. One of the co-hosts quickly jumps in, a bit more assertive this time. Okay, I just want to say, this is starting to feel a little. Selena raises her hand again, gently but clearly. No, it's okay, she says, not taking her eyes off Alyssa. I can answer that. She pauses, choosing her words carefully. There have been times, Selena begins, where I've spoken on things and later realized I didn't have the full picture. And I've stepped back. I've listened. I've apologized when needed. Alyssa nods. And do you think those moments change how you approach speaking out now? Yes, Selena says immediately. But they don't stop me. There's a quiet ripple through the audience. Because, she continues, if you wait until you know everything perfectly, you'll never say anything. And silence can be just as damaging. Alyssa responds quickly. But is it your place to speak on every issue? There's a sharper edge to that question. Selena's expression tightens slightly. I never said I speak on every issue. But you speak on a lot, Alyssa replies. And so do a lot of people. Selena shoots back, still composed but clearly more direct now. The difference is people are watching me more closely. That draws a louder reaction from the audience, some applause, a few murmurs of agreement. Another host jumps in, trying again to balance things out. I think what Selena is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a level of scrutiny that comes with fame that maybe isn't always applied equally. Selena nods. Exactly. But Alyssa doesn't let the point settle. I agree there's more scrutiny, she says. But that also comes with more responsibility. You don't get one without the other. Selena leans back slightly, crossing her hands in front of her on the table. I've never denied that. Then what's the line? Alyssa asks. Where do you draw it? There's another pause. Selena looks down briefly, then back up. I draw the line at staying true to what I believe, she says. Not what people expect me to believe. The audience claps again, this time a bit louder. Alyssa nods slowly, but her expression remains serious. But what if what you believe influences millions of people in a way that isn't fully informed? Now the tension spikes again. One of the hosts lets out a small laugh, half nervous, half trying to diffuse. We are really getting into this today, she says, glancing at the camera. But Selena doesn't break eye contact. What you're asking, Selena says, her voice steady, is whether I should second-guess myself every time I speak because someone might disagree. Alyssa shakes her head slightly. No, I'm asking whether influence should come with more restraint. That word, restraint, hangs there. Selena repeats it quietly. Restraint. She nods slowly. I think I've spent a lot of my life being told to be restrained. To be quiet. To be careful. The audience grows still. And I understand where that comes from, she continues. But I also think there's power in speaking, even when it's uncomfortable. Alyssa responds, and there's also consequences. Selena meets that immediately. There always are. A brief silence follows. No one interrupts this time. Alyssa leans back slightly now, folding her hands. I just think there's a difference between using your voice and understanding the full impact of that voice. Selena nods once. And I think there's a difference between questioning someone's impact and questioning whether they should speak at all. That lands hard. The audience reacts audibly, some applause, a few yes, and a couple of quieter murmurs. One of the co-hosts finally steps in more firmly. Okay, she says, smiling but clearly trying to regain control of the segment. This is obviously a passionate conversation, and I think it's an important one. She turns slightly toward Selena. Let's take a breath for a second. There's a light ripple of laughter from the audience, easing the tension just a bit. But I do want to ask you something else, the host continues. Because beyond all of this, you've built an incredibly successful career. And a lot of people look up to you not just for what you say, but for what you've done. Selena relaxes slightly, though the intensity hasn't completely left her expression. Thank you, she says softly. So when you look back at everything, music, acting, your business, what are you most proud of right now? For a moment, it seems like the conversation might shift back to safer ground. Selena smiles faintly. Honestly, I'm proud of surviving some really hard moments and still being here. The audience applauds warmly. But before the moment can fully settle, Alyssa adds one more comment, quieter this time but still pointed. And part of that survival has been learning when to speak and when not to, right? There's an immediate reaction, some gasps, a few surprised laughs. Selena turns her head slowly toward her again. This time there's no smile. Or, Selena replies, her voice calm but unmistakably firm, it's been about learning not to let other people decide that for me. The audience erupts, some clapping loudly, others reacting in shock at how direct the exchange has become. At the table, the hosts exchange looks again. This is no longer just a discussion. It's a real unfolding clash. And even though the segment hasn't ended yet, it's clear to everyone watching. This moment is going to carry far beyond this table. The applause doesn't fade as quickly this time. It lingers uneven, mixed with murmurs and a kind of charged energy that's hard to ignore. The camera cuts briefly to the audience. Some people nodding, looking surprised, a few exchanging glances like they can't believe how direct things have gotten. At the table, there's a noticeable pause. No one rushes to speak. Even the hosts, who are used to navigating heated conversations, seem to be recalibrating in real time. One of the co-hosts finally steps in, her tone measured but lighter, trying to regain some balance. Okay, I think we can all agree this is why people tune in, she says with a small smile. Real conversations, real opinions. There's a ripple of soft laughter, but the tension hasn't disappeared. She turns to Selena. And to your credit, You've been very open here. Selena nods slightly. I'm just being honest. Alyssa sits back for a moment, her hands folded, but then she leans forward again. Not as sharply as before, but still clearly engaged. I respect that, she says. I really do. And I don't think anyone here is saying you shouldn't be honest. Selena glances at her. It kind of sounds like that sometimes. There's an audible, "oh," from somewhere in the audience. Alyssa shakes her head quickly. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying honesty with influence is complicated. Selena responds almost immediately. Everything about being in the public eye is complicated. One of the hosts interjects gently. That's very true. But Alyssa continues, her tone still controlled. Then let me ask you this. Do you think your fans ever feel pressured to agree with you because they admire you? Selena pauses, considering it. I think some might, she admits. But I also think people are smarter than that. They can admire someone and still think for themselves. A few audience members clap at that. Alyssa nods. I'd like to believe that too. But we've seen examples where fan bases can become very defensive. Now the energy shifts again, less sharp but more personal. Selena's expression changes slightly, more serious now. Are you talking about my fans specifically? Alyssa hesitates for a fraction of a second. I'm talking about fan culture in general. Selena leans forward just a little. Because it sounded specific. The audience reacts again, quiet but attentive. One of the co-hosts quickly jumps in, sensing where this could go. I think what Alyssa means is that in today's environment, social media can amplify everything. Alyssa nods. Exactly. But Selena doesn't fully let it go. I agree with that, she says. But I also don't control what millions of people do online. Of course not, Alyssa replies. But your words can set a tone. Selena exhales, a bit more visibly this time. So can the way questions are asked, she says. That line lands immediately. The audience reacts, louder this time. Some applause, a few surprised laughs, even a couple of wow-s under people's breath. At the table, one of the hosts raises her eyebrows slightly, clearly registering the shift. Alyssa tilts her head. What do you mean by that? Selena keeps her gaze steady. I mean that when you frame something a certain way, it influences how people hear it. Alyssa responds, that's part of having a conversation. It is, Selena agrees. But there's a difference between asking a question and implying something. There's a brief silence. Alyssa leans back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. I think I've been pretty direct, not implying. Selena nods once. You've been direct, yeah. The tone there, subtle but unmistakable, gets another reaction from the audience. One of the co-hosts laughs lightly, trying again to ease things. Okay, we might need a little humor break soon, she says. But Selena continues, her voice still calm but more grounded now, more certain. I don't mind tough questions, she says. I really don't. But I do think there's a way to ask them that doesn't assume the worst. That shifts the dynamic again, not louder, but deeper. Alyssa listens, then responds. I don't think I've assumed the worst. I think I've asked what a lot of people at home might be thinking. Selena nods slowly. Maybe. But there's also a lot of people who don't think that way. A small wave of applause moves through the audience. And they matter too, Selena adds. There's a pause. Even Alyssa takes a moment before responding. I agree with that, she says. But part of this job is representing multiple perspectives. Selena leans back now, mirroring Alyssa's earlier posture. And part of mine is representing my own. That line hits hard. The audience reacts again, this time more unified, a stronger round of applause building across the room. One of the hosts claps along briefly, smiling as she looks between them. Okay, that was a line, she says. Even Alyssa lets out a small breath, almost a half smile, acknowledging the moment. But the intensity doesn't fully drop. Alyssa speaks again, softer now but still firm. Let me ask you something more personal then. Selena nods cautiously. Okay, do these conversations ever make you want to step back? Alyssa asks. From speaking out, from engaging publicly? Selena doesn't answer right away. The room grows quieter again, but this time it's less tense and more focused. Yeah, she finally says. Sometimes. There's a subtle shift. This is different. More reflective. Because it's exhausting, she continues. No matter what you say, it gets picked apart. Twisted. Question. The audience is listening closely now. No interruptions, no murmurs. And I understand that comes with the job, she adds. But it doesn't make it easy. Alyssa nods slowly. I can imagine that. But, Selena says, her voice strengthening again. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop being who I am. A few people clap again, quieter this time, more supportive than reactive. And who I am, she continues, is someone who cares. Someone who wants to use her voice, even if it's not perfect. Alyssa responds, and I think that's fair. I really do. There's a slight softening in her tone now. But I also think it's fair, Alyssa adds, for people to question that voice when it has that much reach. Selena nods once. And I'm okay with being questioned. She pauses, then adds more pointedly, I'm just not okay with being dismissed. That line lands even heavier than the last. The audience reacts, some applause, some audible agreement. At the table, the hosts exchange looks again. This isn't just a disagreement anymore. It's a defining moment in the conversation. One of them leans forward, speaking carefully. I think what we're seeing here is actually a really important discussion about influence, responsibility, and authenticity. She turns to both of them. And honestly, this is the kind of conversation people need to hear. Selena nods slightly. Alyssa nods too. But the energy between them hasn't disappeared. It's just evolved. Less sharp, more layered, but still very real. And as the cameras continue to roll and the audience stays locked in, it's clear that whatever comes next is going to carry even more weight. Because now, everyone is fully paying attention. For a moment, there's a rare kind of stillness in the studio. The kind that only happens after something real has been said and everyone is quietly processing it. No one jumps in right away. One of the co-hosts finally exhales and smiles gently, looking between Selena and Alyssa. I think this is one of those moments where people at home are probably leaning closer to their screens. A soft ripple of laughter moves through the audience, easing the intensity just a little. But seriously, she continues, this is what live television is about. Different perspectives, real reactions, and sometimes disagreement. Selena nods, her posture a little more relaxed now, though she's still clearly present in the moment. I agree, she says quietly. Alyssa glances over at her. So do I. There's a brief pause, and then another host steps in, her tone warm but intentional. I want to say something because I think it matters. We can sit at this table, have a strong disagreement, and still respect each other. The audience applauds, this time more unified, more grounded. Selena gives a small nod. Of course. Alyssa echoes it. Absolutely. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer sharp. It's settled into something more reflective. The host turns back to Selena. Before we wrap, I want to give you a chance, because this conversation took a turn, but you're here for a reason. What do you want people to take away from this moment? From everything you've said today? Selena takes a second before answering. I think, she begins, then pauses, choosing her words carefully. I think it's okay to not have all the answers. I think it's okay to speak, to learn, to grow, publicly. The audience listens quietly. And I think, she continues, we should make space for people to do that without immediately assuming the worst about them. A few people clap softly. She adds, that doesn't mean don't question. It just means question with intention. There's a thoughtful silence after that. Alyssa nods slowly. I can respect that, she says. Selena glances at her. And I respect what you were saying too, she replies. Even if we don't fully agree. That moment, simple but direct, shifts the tone again. The audience responds with a stronger round of applause, appreciative of the acknowledgement. One of the co-hosts smiles widely. Okay, that's what I like to see, she says. Growth on live TV. There's laughter again, this time more genuine, less tense. Another host adds, and honestly, this is why people keep coming back to shows like this. Because you never know where the conversation is going to go. She turns to Selena. Thank you for being open enough to go there with us. Thank you for having me, Selena replies. Alyssa adds, and thank you for engaging. Not everyone would. Selena gives a small smile. Well, I'm here, aren't I? That gets a light laugh from the audience. The host looks toward the camera, beginning to transition the segment. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got more ahead. The music starts to rise slightly, and the camera pulls back just enough to signal the end of the segment. But even as the show moves on, you can feel it, that this moment isn't staying in the studio. After the cameras cut, the atmosphere shifts again. The hosts lean back in their chairs, some exchanging quick comments off mic. Selena takes a sip of water, her expression calm but thoughtful. Alyssa adjusts her notes, glancing over briefly. There's no dramatic fallout, no raised voices off air. Just that quiet, post-conversation processing. A producer steps in briefly, giving cues for the next segment. The professionalism kicks back in quickly. But behind the scenes, it's clear everyone knows what just happened. Within minutes of the segment airing, clips start circulating online. Short moments, Selena saying, "I'm not trying to be objective, I'm trying to be real." Another of her saying, "Who decides what's balanced?" And the line that really takes off, "I'm just not okay with being dismissed." Social media lights up. Some viewers are praising Selena for standing her ground, calling her authentic, composed, and unapologetically honest. Others side with Alyssa, saying she asked necessary questions and brought important balance to the conversation. Clips are shared, replayed, slowed down, analyzed. Comment sections fill up fast. Selena handled that with so much grace. Alyssa was just doing her job. That got uncomfortable real quick. This is the realest segment I've seen in a long time. Debates spark across platforms. People pick apart specific lines, tone shifts, facial expressions. Some viewers say the moment felt empowering. Others say it felt tense and unresolved. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. It didn't feel scripted. By the end of the day, the segment becomes one of the most talked about moments from the show that week. Entertainment outlets recap it. Commentary channels break it down. Viewers who missed it go back to watch the full exchange. And the conversation doesn't just stay about Selena or Alyssa. It expands into something bigger. About celebrity influence. About media responsibility. About who gets to speak, and how. Back on set, as the show wraps later that day, the mood is lighter again. There are smiles, casual goodbyes, the usual rhythm returning. Selena thanks the hosts again before leaving. Alyssa gives a polite nod, a brief exchange of words that doesn't make it to air. There's no dramatic ending, just a quiet acknowledgement that something real happened. And for viewers at home, that's exactly what made it stand out. Not a perfect resolution. Not a rehearsed moment. Just a real conversation that didn't go the way anyone expected. If you watched this unfold, what did you think? Was Selena right to stand her ground? Or did Alyssa raise valid concerns that needed to be asked? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.